Assassin's Week continues. Today on Outside the Box Reviews, we are looking at the NECA Player Select Assassin's Creed Brotherhood Legendary Assassin Ezio. As I'd said multiple times before in these reviews, this was the figure that got me picking up the NECA Assassin's Creed line. And holy cow, what a figure this is. This guy is awesome. I am so glad I went out on a limb and picked this guy up. Really what it came down to is I had one of those Toys R Us reward check things for 20% off or $5 or I don't remember what it was. And I picked up everything else I wanted to at the store. There was nothing else I was really interested in picking up for my collection. So, I love Assassin's Creed. I plucked this guy off the shelf and figured I'd see how he was. And as soon as I got him, I was blown away at how cool this guy was. Now, NECA, always the ones to give us variants on something, pumped out so many different versions of Ezio in this form, it's kinda ridiculous. This was, as I said, the Legendary Assassin version, which was also referred to as the Ivory version. They had the Ebony Assassin Ezio, which was Ezio in a darker style costume, a more armored style costume. He came with only one set of hands, but one of them was gloved, and he came with his sword and the sheath for the sword. And there was also the Onyx Assassin, which was kind of similar to the Ebony Assassin, only that he was wearing more of a blue outfit with silver, and he came with a crossbow. Now, all three of these versions had an exclusive Toys R Us version without the hood, with the hood down. In hindsight, I kind of wish I would have picked up the unhooded Ebony version. I may go back and try to hunt him down one day, because it would have been nice to have the version with a sword with the unhooded face. NECA also did a San Diego Comic-Con exclusive in 2012 of Eagle Vision Ezio Auditore. He was made of a translucent blue plastic, came with a bunch of different hands, and a non-translucent eagle, which would have been kind of cool to have as well on display, but I wasn't going to pay the price required for those items. NECA did Da Vinci's flying machine to go along with this version of Ezio, and right now they are preparing to put another version of this guy on the market, Assassin's Creed Brotherhood Ezio Auditore in Florentine Scarlet, which is like a red and orangey yellow version of this character. Also comes with a bunch of hands and a crossbow. And that's going to come in a 2-pack. Beyond NECA releasing a billion versions of this figure, a company called GameStars Collectibles released their own 3 3/4 inch Assassin's Creed line that I completely ignored. It sat on shelves at Target. I think it went to clearance really quickly, and they just looked awful. The paint job on them was atrocious. I couldn't even get myself vaguely interested, and they were really overpriced. But that's enough about the other versions that I don't have. Let's take a look at the version I do have. Let's take a closer look at Ezio. One thing I have to say about this figure is I feel like NECA has been in competition in some way with Hot Toys for a while now. Every time I go on to forums talking about NECA figures, they're inevitably compared to the Hot Toys figures, and that's becoming more and more apt. They have some of the best sculpts in their scale, in the 7-8 inch scale. The paint is pretty good, and the accessories with NECA are starting to get almost to that level of Hot Toys. And to prove it, Ezio comes with a crap load of hands, and this to me is a very, very Hot Toys move. So what we have here is, for each side, we have a flat, open palm hand. So here is his left hand, and here is his right hand. Then each side has a fist. So here we go, this would be his right, and then left. And then we have two slightly different ones. We have a left hand that is kind of semi-open. This eventually became the hand that could hold the crossbow on some of the variants. And then we have this gripping hand here, which I assume you could put a sword or something else in his hand. All of these are pretty well painted, pretty well detailed. Some good veins sculpted in there and everything. It's pretty well done. The one complaint I have is they all have the built-in ball joint and wrist swivel here, and the paint wears off where it bends. So that's a little annoying that there's just white plastic underneath these. But with Ezio, you could just pop whatever ones you want right in there. Easy as heck, couldn't be any easier, and you could have whatever hands you want on him. As far as sculpt goes, this one I feel really looks like the video game character. They did a great job on him. The face really just does look like the character. The paint on it's really nice as well. You can see his eyes are well done. He's got his beard, even sculpting for kind of some stubble on there. The scar is still present on his lip. If you pull back the top a little bit, you can see he has the ears sculpted. There's some hair sculpted up there. It's really hard to see in there. It's red on the interior, gray on the exterior, but it's very thin, rubbery plastic, so you get a really good view of the face as much as allowed. He's got his collar up here. I like this costume for Brotherhood a lot better than I liked it for Assassin's Creed 2. Now, one thing I praised on the Assassin's Creed 2 figure was some of the detail done at the bottom of his robe and everything with the designs and everything. Here, it's actually sculpted right into the soft rubber material, which is even cooler looking. The strap, instead of being sculpted on solid, is a rubberized piece, as is the guard armor up here on his shoulder. He once again has his little cape in the back, white with red underneath this time. He's got his belt, big thick belt buckle, very ornate on this version, with his little throwing daggers in here. These are not removable, they are totally stationary. They are a hard plastic though, stuck onto the soft rubber. Almost all of the parts on this figure you can touch have soft rubber on them. The entire torso is just covered in it. It's got kind of the skirt down here in the front, the flaps, multiple layers, which is really cool. He has the whole thing split up the sides so not to hinder articulation. You can see the gray pants with some nice stitching detail, and his big dark boots, which I really like on this figure. I think they're really cool looking. Very nice. Sculpted, painted belt buckles and all the good stuff there. More straps across the back. And all this white has kind of a gray wash to it, which makes it look dirty and used and worn, but still very much a white color to it. Ezio's sporting 2 gauntlets this time. They are identical from what I can tell. The mechanism here, and you turn it over, it's got the big silver ornate thing, the Assassin's logo, everything you would expect in the Assassin's gauntlet. More of the stuff sticking out the bottom, the ruffle, but this is also a soft rubber, allowing you to not hinder as much articulation. And then both of his blades, his Assassin's blades, are the retractable style now, so you can just sit there and pull them out, and he's ready to go assassinate some people. Really, really cool. I really dig this figure. The paint on it is very nice. The sculpt on it is really cool. And above all else, the thing that makes me love this figure most of all is the articulation. Ezio has a ball-jointed neck with a great range of motion. A lot more up this time. You can see his head definitely has an upward angle to it. Down, side to side, everything good. Ball-jointed shoulders, or pin socket shoulders, though this upper part here is its own little soft rubber piece, so if you try to go up too far, he's just going to bump that up, which is a little annoying, but necessary for the character design. So in and out, very easy. Rotate at the bicep. You can bend and swivel at the elbow, though it is pretty limited. You kind of have to straighten the arm to swivel it and then bend it. And the bend, once again, isn't very good because of the thickness of the clothing he's wearing and the gauntlet itself. The wrist can rotate as well as bend, which is really, really nice. You could get it looking really good when you're trying to get the assassination blade out there. And the amount of articulation you have, you can get them into some different poses where it's not hindering it because of the blade. Onto the torso. This is where they added a lot of articulation to the character. He now has an ab crunch, which is really cool. You can get some really cool poses at him with that ab crunch. And then he has 2 waist swivels. He has one up here, swivel him above the belt, and the belt is almost on its own piece, and then you could swivel the legs underneath it. Kind of crazy. Kind of unnecessary, but kind of crazy. Legs can move forward, back. Once again, you kind of have to rotate them around to get them out to the side. It's got kind of that wonky joint, which I don't like. Swivel at the upper leg. Double jointed knees. Swivel at the boot. Bend at the boot. You have an ankle pivot here. And bend at the toe. Really, really cool. So it's needless to say that Ezio is jam-packed with articulation. And the greatest thing about that to me is you can get him in all these cool poses, but none of this articulation is overly obvious. He doesn't look chunky, full of joints and all that stuff. And you can make out that there are seams and everything everywhere. It's an action figure. It's going to happen. But some art figures, when you try to cram a lot of articulation into them, they get a very odd look to them. They're built around that articulation. I think a lot of Marvel Legends back in the day, the Toy Biz ones, that happened to a lot of them. They got this strange look where they'd have oversized shoulders and parts of them wouldn't be fitting correctly just because they had to be bigger to fit the articulation. That is not an issue here with Ezio. As I've mentioned before, I love this figure. He is awesome. He's a very, very cool piece. If you're an Assassin's Creed fan, I think this is the figure to have. Now, I wish they would have split the difference instead of giving us these exclusives. I wish there would have been a way to get him in this robe with the sword. He has a hand that I believe could hold it, and it would have been really nice to not have to buy two figures to get the sword. Or even if they hadn't included the sword with him, at least give him the portion for his belt where he could actually store it. Because even if you had the sword with this guy, you could only ever put it in his hand. You couldn't store it on his person, which is a bit of a bummer. So I kind of wish NECA hadn't given us 800 different versions of this guy, and it's probably the reason why I only have the one, is because there were so many different options. I just kind of was like, okay, no, I'm not touching that. I'm just not touching any of this. Just leave it alone. Give me the one in white, the basic standard outfit, and I'll be good. Little did I know that it's never enough. I guess there's no real way to make me completely happy with something like this, because I always want more. And speaking of always wanting more, NECA gave us a vehicle for this guy. NECA gave us a billion different versions. One thing they never gave us that they really should have is a stand, like a flight stand. Right now I have my version of Ezio on this coat hanger abomination that's holding him off the ground in a leaping pose. And I think this is something that's just obvious for an assassin. To me, this is the kind of pose you want your Assassin's Creed figure in. You want him leaping in for the assassination kill. That's such an iconic piece of the game. And it's a bummer that NECA never gave us anything to replicate this with our action figures. It seems so obvious. The base, you could just make the little assassin symbol out of it and give us this like clear plastic that you could somehow either clip onto his waist, or as I have it here, kind of sticking up his skirt, which sounds really awkward, but it's basically what I have the thing doing. It would have been such a cool move on NECA's part, and they still could do it. They're still making at least the Revelations figures, so NECA, if you're listening, and I know you're probably not, but seriously, get on this. It would be an awesome accessory. So if I haven't said it before, I'll say it now. This figure is a super high recommend. Love this figure completely. One of my favorites. Definitely a must-own for any Assassin's Creed fan. Make sure you check out Outside the Box reviews on Facebook. Maybe let me know on there what your favorite Assassin's Creed figure is and what your favorite Assassin's Creed game is. Is it one and the same, or is it different? And come back next time as we continue Assassin's Week, heading once again a little bit further in the future and heading out of Italy into Turkey.